Good evening, everybody. I'm Ngakma Nor'dzin. Welcome to the third in the series of teachings on the 7 points of mind training by Chekhawa Yeshé Dorje, given by Ngakma Nor'dzin, the author of the book Battlecry of Freedom. I'm mostly the admin for this evening, and we're recording this for posterity, and hopefully we'll keep the recording and the audio will be better than last time. If anyone wants to ask a question at any time, you can do that. You can either raise a hand on Zoom, and we found out last time that your name bubbled to the top, so you're easy to find once your hand is raised, or you can use the Zoom group chat and type a question there, and I will pick that up and pass that on to Ngakma Nor'dzin as soon as possible. Okay.
Thank you very much. So last time we looked at point 2 of the 7 points of mind training, and the second point is awakened mind, the purpose and basis of training. I think it's quite interesting to look at that phrasing, the purpose and the basis. So we are engaging in mind training for the purpose of awakening the mind, but the awakened mind is also the basis that enables us to practice. Beginninglessly enlightened mind is the reality that we don't know, that we don't have contact with. But because of beginningless awakening, it is also the basis of the training as well as the reason to engage in training. So this second point of the 7 points is divided into 5 of view and 4 of intent. And Ngakma Nor'dzin's just going to remind you of the 5 of view.
Awaken by regarding all phenomena as dreamlike and discovering the nature of unborn primordial awareness. Then allow the method to self-liberate into the natural condition of the mind and rest in that condition, regarding the phenomena of daily life as illusory.
So if we use our horse riding analogy here, we could say that this is learning to recognize and understand the nature of the wild horse of the mind, so that we're discovering those qualities. And this is the state of ultimate awakening. And this is to do with our minds, the nature of the mind. So the second part of this point are the 4 slogans that deal with awakened intent or relative bodhicitta.
Awaken through fixing the breath on the practice of alternately sending and receiving. Then examine the 3 objects of perception and the 3 poisons to enable them to be transformed into 3 roots of goodness. Remember to practice with slogans in daily life in all activities and situations, and to begin the practice of sending and receiving with oneself.
So these 4 slogans to do with awakened intent, you could say that this is learning to embrace the natural grace, power, and potential of the wild horse of the mind, and engaging that relationship as you move through life and riding through all the circumstances that you come across in life. So let's look at slogan number 7, first of all. Train in alternately sending and receiving and fix these 2 on the breath. In some of the commentaries, these are separated as 2 separate slogans, but in this version, they're 1 slogan. Now, this is referring to the practice of Tonglen. And I don't know if any of you have received teachings on Tonglen, but I'm going to talk a little bit about when we first received teachings about Tonglen. And we were very much given this practice as a practice that you do sitting on your meditation cushion, that you engage in this practice as a session of visualization. So first of all, you engage in a purification practice so that you feel that you are capable, have the qualities that enable you to send and receive. Then you give out those qualities, you visualize giving those qualities to anybody that you feel you want to help, or any situation you want to help. Could be an individual, could be a group, could be a global thing like the pandemic. And then after having given those qualities, that benefit, you then breathe in the all the negativity or the unpleasantness from the situation that that you are trying to help. So it was very much a visualization practice, sitting on your cushion, and you engage in that for a period of time. And it's a very nice practice to do. It has a very much a feel-good factor. However, Chekhawa is saying, fix these two on the breath.
Could I ask a question?
You may.
We have a question from Luke. The practice of sending and receiving is not commonly taught in the Aroter. How does it fit with our practice as primarily Aroter practitioners?
Well, perhaps we could come back to that when I've talked about it a bit more, and you can tell me whether or not I've answered it. Is that reasonable? Because I haven't really started talking about it yet. Was there any? So this practice of sending and receiving as a practice that you engage in sitting on your cushion, this for me doesn't feel the same practice as something that you fix on the breath. If you're fixing something on your breath, well, I don't know about you, but I'm not only breathing when I'm sitting on my meditation cushion. I actually breathe all the time. I breathe when I'm out there in the world. I breathe when I'm having an emotional reaction. I breathe when I'm relaxed. I breathe, and so on, obviously. Breath is ever present. If you're not breathing, you're dead. And if you're dead, you're not really practicing Tonglen anyway. So my feeling about this slogan is that Chekhawa is saying, this is a practice we engage in all the time, or it's an intention we engage in all the time, because here we're in the sphere of intention. So what can we fix on the breath? We can't fix that visualization on the breath. We can't live our ordinary lives visualizing in that way. But I think what is happening here is that we're approaching this in terms of our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others. And in terms of the Kandropawo teachings that we have in the Arote lineage, we talk about having a concave and a convex relationship with our partners and with phenomena. So when they always put it in the order of sending and receiving, but for me, it feels the other way around works better for me. So I'm going to talk about it in the other way around. So when I'm receiving, what I'm trying to do is be empty. So I'm not going to make the receiving of whatever is happening in the moment about me. I'm not going to actively engage in laying a layer of me on top of that. So if I'm hearing something, try and enable that to be direct hearing rather than, oh, I think that's a so-and-so and I don't like that noise, or I do like that noise, or whatever. A little pertinent at the moment as you have a wine. Or if you're tasting something that you've never tasted before, rather than thinking, oh, this tastes a little bit like that, and I don't like that, or this tastes a little bit like that, oh, I do like that. Just taste it directly. So this receiving is about getting out of the way of laying oneself on whatever is being received. So this is about having a concave definition in terms of whatever your circumstances are transmitting to you. So it's about being empty in relationship to others. So that's the breathing in, that's the receiving. Then on the breathing out is a response. And that response is inevitably convex in some way because it's going outward, but we don't want to lose that sense of having received directly and being empty in relation to what we're receiving. So we respond with as open a response as is possible to whatever that those circumstances demand of us in that moment. So if what we're hearing is somebody talking to us, we respond to what they're saying, and we don't add a layer of, I don't like this person, therefore I'm going to respond defensively, or I do like this person, so even though they're not saying something very nice, I'm going to ignore that and be nice to them, or whatever, a whole range of things you could imagine in that situation. You respond from that empty space. Responding is inevitable, but responding from an empty space enables that response to be appreciative, to come from a place of goodness, of wanting to help others, to come from a place of appropriateness rather than responding through our patterning. So we respond to what is needed, what we see as needed from their side, rather than laying on some sort of pattern we have. Let me just finish this bit. Now, we're inevitably going to get that wrong because we do not dwell in non-duality. We are not awakened beings. But as long as the intention is always there to receive with openness and to send from a position of kindness and openness, then intent and view are appropriately engaged. Then that is attempting to live the path of awakening. So here, this means that Tonglen takes on a whole different feeling about what is meant by sending and receiving. So to come back to Luke, this is not taught in the Aratea lineage. I can't remember the name of the Lama that Rinpoche quotes as having said this, but can you remember who the Lama was, who said that most people are not fit to practice Tonglen because they use it as an excuse for actually being unkind in the real world because they're practicing it on their cushions?
No, I don't remember that.
That is why it's not taught in the Aratea lineage, because engaging in a practice like this, sitting on your cushion and experiencing that warm afterglow of, oh, I'm a lovely person, I've taken everybody's suffering and I've given them all white light and cleansed them and everything's pure. There can be the danger it stays on your cushion, it stays as a practice on your cushion, whereas the way that Nakchang Rinpoche and Kandra Dechen teach, and the way that they approach our relationship with others, is that we always default to kindness. That is the bedrock of teachings in the Aratea lineage. If you can't be wise, be kind, because everybody knows what's kind. Everybody knows when the thing that's coming out of their mouth that is so clever and perhaps even true, but you know it's not kind. So from the perspective of everything that Rinpoche and Kandra Dechen have ever taught, you're kind first of all. And I believe that this is the approach of Tonglen in terms of fixing it on the breath. It's an attitude of being that you carry with you in your life, rather than a meditation practice you do sitting on your cushion, which is the only way that I've ever been taught it. Okay, so you have questions.
Yes, question from Michael Rose. By intention, do you mean we can dedicate every breath, whether conscious or not, throughout the day?
Dedicate. Well, again, could you tell me what you mean by dedicate? Because
you could unmute if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. No, right. Dedicated is a big part of the Kadampa style that I learned Tonglen in.
Okay. Obviously, I wouldn't want to contradict anything you've learned from another teacher. But my only experience of dedication, and dedication does come up in these teachings much later on, about reviewing the day and seeing how you've got on. But if the moment you're in is angry, you don't want to dedicate that. So it's more about being aware of what you're giving out in the moment. If that moment is a moment of goodness and kindness, and you want to dedicate it to something, somebody, some situation specifically in the moment, then by all means breathe that to them. But in terms of what I'm trying to say here, it is in terms of Tonglen as a practice that is fixed on the breath. So it's a practice that's fixed in every moment of our lives. It has to go beyond concept. It has to go beyond conscious thought in the moment. It has to become part of the way we manifest as beings in the world. So we have to enable view to be strong. This sense of awakening has to become very strong through our meditation practice. And then this intention can become equally as strong as we engage in the world. I hope that answers it to some extent.
A follow-up. So the mounting on the breath part is not just an active conscious practice or a dedicated intention. It's the fruit here, question. Once the view and practice is strong, question.
I think this whole section the second point is about the fruit. This is about how we are practicing being awakened beings, or living within the intention of being awakened beings. So yes, this is a statement that is possibly beyond us at the moment, and through training we can arrive at this point where anything that we're receiving, we're concave, and we don't immediately put in those barriers of judging, categorizing, contrasting it with this and that we've already experienced, and so on and so forth. We're not doing that whole classification thing. We're just being open. And whatever we're putting out into the world, in terms fixing it on the out breath, we ensure that that is based from awakened view, and that at best it's not going to hurt any, at least it's not going to hurt anybody, and at best it's going to benefit somebody. That is the aim, that everything that every sense in which we engage with the environment, with other people, is pleasant for them, is that we're nice to be around, that they want to be with us, that we're not laying some sort of trip on them. Okay.
Yeah, we've had a thank you response from Luke and from Michael.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So I think that this is quite a difficult point, Tonglen. I think it isn't easy to get a feeling for, and as Luke has mentioned, it isn't something that was taught as a formal visualization practice in the Arate lineage. And I don't think that matters. It's good to know that there is a practice like that exists, but I think the connection with it in terms of the Arate lineage and the way the Arate lineage is given to us is this sense of we're open. And when we are engaged, we're just nice. We're just good people. We engage from that basis of human goodness. And that is what we fix on the breath. I think we'll move on to the next one. I don't want to get too bogged down. Actually, I'm going to move to number 10 because it's still connected to that practice, which is begin the sequence of sending and receiving with oneself. Not all the commentaries include this as a slogan. And I think this is there in the sense that if we're engaged in practice to benefit everyone and everything everywhere, well, we're part of that. We are something. We are here. We exist. And I think it's emphasizing the point that Buddhism is not a religion of martyrdom. That although there are stories of amazing feats of martyrdom that practitioners may have engaged in, you are not being asked to go beyond your capacity in any sense in the Buddhist teachings. You engage to the best of your ability, but you're not being asked, if you're not well, then maybe you can't help people very much anymore. If you're old and frail, it's a bit crazy to try and take on doing all your neighbours' shopping during the pandemic, and so you just get ill yourself. And it's about avoiding idiot compassion, which was a word that used to be used at the Gaelic Centre. I think it's a very good term. We want to be compassionate, but we don't want to be idiots about it. And it's about being realistic about how you are. Sometimes we need to rest. Sometimes we aren't well enough to do what we want to do. And that's absolutely fine. So if you have some physical problem or your emotional state is not as good as you would like it to be, you can practice Tonglen with yourself. You can breathe it in, breathe it out, let it go by using the breath as a focus. So that's what this last point in this set is saying. So let's move on to slogan 8 now. 3 objects, 3 poisons, 3 roots of goodness. So this is one of the slogans where things become delightfully pithy. I like the slogans that just sort of whack you with them, and a whole teaching can expand just from this very succinct way of putting it. So what are the 3 objects? Well, the 3 objects are how we view everything. It's either good, it's bad, or it's neutral. Those are the 3 ways that we view everything when we're engaged in the me project, in the project of making sure me is happy. So it's either good, it's bad, or it's neutral. And through making that judgment, that immediate judgment of anything we come across, we have the 3 responses. So these are the 3 poisons. If it's good, I'm attracted to it. So I grasp at it, I want it. I make sure it can increase, I go for it. If it's bad, oh no, I don't want that. I'm averse to it. I push it away. I respond in an unpleasant way to try and destroy whatever it is that I'm finding bad. And if it's neutral, then I just don't care. It doesn't make any connection with me. I have complete indifference to it. So this is very much placing me in the middle of everything. So let's look at an example of, I think, seeing people who are homeless in the street can be a very uncomfortable experience. And I think that could be perhaps a good example to use here. So we see this person with their bowl and they're homeless. Now, if we have particular opinions about, oh, it's their own fault because they're homeless, they must have done something stupid, or they've lost their job because they didn't do it properly, or just, oh, I feel really uncomfortable, this person's asking something of me. And so this discomfort makes us place this experience in the bad category. We're averse to it. So we quickly walk on. Or if they speak to us, we're unpleasant to them or rude to them or something like that. Or we just feel guilty about it because we don't know how to deal with it. But it's all very complicated because it's actually all about me and my response to seeing this person, rather than an open response to a person who needs help in some way. Now, if we see it as an opportunity to be the good Buddhist and do something nice, then maybe we'll give them a fiver and we'll feel good about that, or we'll give them some food and so on and so forth. Well, that is obviously a good thing to do, but we have to be careful that we don't therefore use that also as the me project, that, oh, I'm a good person because I do these things. And you start going around looking for the homeless people so that you can feel good about yourself. That is the point, is the feeling good about yourself in relationship to this situation. You don't, the person is actually really not fundamental there. It's the feeling good about yourself that is important. That's what you're grasping at, that engaging with this situation so you can feel good about yourself. So you're actually poisoning the potential of helping those people because there's that grasping quality there. And then if you just ignore them, you just think, oh, it's nothing to do with me. I haven't got a lot of money. I'm sure the next person's got more money they can give them, and you quickly walk on by. Then you've just made your life a little bit colder, that you've made their life a little bit colder, that you've missed an opportunity to engage in some way. You've missed an opportunity to actually make a difference in some way. Now, the way that we can transform good, bad, neutral, attraction, aversion, and indifference into the 3 roots of goodness is to let go of the me project. If there's no me there, then when you see this homeless person, the fact that it might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, or you don't know what to do, or you don't know whether their situation is real or whatever, if you just let go of all that, all these complicated issues around that, then perhaps you can just respond in a very natural way to that situation. And perhaps you can just make a difference there. Just give a little bit, and then don't dwell on the fact you've given a little bit. Was it enough? Was it not enough? Do I feel good about doing it? Etc., etc. Just let all that go and just try and be real in the moment of that situation. And then through letting go of good, bad, neutral, every circumstance becomes an opportunity to just breathe out, breathe in, receive the situation, and send to the situation whatever is needed in the moment, without this sticky, complicated problem of the me project.
I have a little story.
Oh, please do.
Of somebody who almost managed that in exactly the same situation. And this is way back when 50 pence was actually quite a lot of money. And there was a homeless person in the street, and generally people would give 10 pence, if that, something like that. And Rinpoche was with one of his students, and the student fished out some money and just gave it without a thought, just fished it out and gave some money to this homeless person. A bit further on down the road, he turns to Rinpoche and said, and I just gave him 50 pence without even thinking about it. So there's a case of somebody who almost managed to be empty in the situation, almost. So most commendable, but it still came back as I managed to do that.
Yeah, well, we're very complicated, and things are very sticky for us. We find it very difficult to be just naturally open and to engage in this practice of sending and receiving in that natural, open, awakened way. So the last point, well, actually the 9th slogan in this section is, in all activities, train with slogans. And I think the key words in this are in all activities. And I think, again, this is a reminder that practice is for every moment. Practice isn't just something you do for 20 minutes, half an hour on your cushion in the morning, and then, oh, I've done my practice for today. Practice is every moment of every day. It's even sleeping. If you can engage in dream yoga, then there's never a moment that cannot be engaging in practice. So when you become familiar with these slogans, you'll find that they start to pop up. So you'll find yourself in a situation and for some reason, one of the slogans will pop into your mind. And that's brilliant when that starts to happen. Those of you who practice within our tradition will know about the 21 Senzin. And I think that is a set of practices, particularly the third set that are to do with the environment, that if you find yourself out on a walk and you find yourself up a mountain, then those practices naturally suggest themselves to you. Or if you're sitting and a noise arises, then the senzin that is connected with hearing sound naturally suggests itself to you. Well, although the senzin are not specified as practices in mind training, that is about, in all activities, training the mind. That is exactly the same thing. This slogan particularly says train with slogans because that is the teaching, and this is presented as a complete body of teaching, these 59 slogans. But basically this slogan is saying practice all the time. I think it was Chekhawa Yeshé who said, practice as if your clothes are on fire. We haven't got a moment to lose. We don't want to waste any time. We want to awaken the mind now. We want to awaken intent to help others now. So just feeling that sitting on your cushion for however long a day is your practice ultimately is insufficient. And that is the basis from where you start to be able to take your practice into ordinary life. Practice has to move into ordinary life. Practice has to become part of the way you respond to situations. It has to be fixed on the breath. So when the slogans arise, they're there for you. The teaching comes back to mind. I think that's one of the reasons that the slogans are often so pithy, because we need to actually be able to remember them. They need to, can you snap fingers for me? Because they need to come like that to the mind. That situation, yeah, there's that slogan. I can apply that slogan here and let go of the me project and move in the direction of awakening. So the slogans are just become there for you once you really get to know them very well. Any other questions? No? So I think that is the end of the second point of mind training. So the first one was engaging the preliminaries. The second one was about awakening. So now we can move on to the third point of mind training. And the third point is transforming bad circumstances into the path of awakening. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are 6 slogans in this section. And ö-Dzin's going to read us a paragraph.
When all experience is painful, recognize its single cause and be grateful to everyone and everything, everywhere, as the method of transforming experience. Embrace the indivisibility of emptiness, energy, and form, recognizing that emptiness protects the mind from deluded perception and response. Practice the 4 highest methods, immediately grasping all opportunities as the means to awaken.
Thank you. So slogan number 11, the first one in point 3, is when the world and life is full of malice and bad circumstances, transform it into the path of awakening. So in this section, in this third point, we're really getting into method now. we're really getting into how do we engage in this awakening? How do we engage in the path of awakening? We've understood the basic nature, or we've started to understand the basic nature of what it means to be awakened in terms of view and intent. Now, this is how we're actually going to do that. So the first one is transform everything. Don't think that there's a situation that exists that cannot be your practice. Even if you're ill and perhaps not well enough to sit on your meditation cushion, you can still approach that situation with the mind of a practitioner. Even if you're living through a pandemic, you can approach that with the mind of a practitioner. If you're in an emotional state, you can approach that from the viewpoint of somebody who wishes to awaken. Now I think these teachings assume a basic human capacity. You could possibly say that they assume a precious human rebirth. So these teachings assume that you are living somewhere where you have access to Buddhist teachings and you have the capacity to understand those teachings. You are living somewhere where you can engage in some practice. You are not in a situation where you are suffering so much that it's impossible to practice. There is so much suffering in your life that it isn't possible to do anything but just get by. I think that's important to say that these teachings assume that you can engage in practice, that you do have circumstances that enable you to practice. But even if we're fortunate enough to live in good circumstances, we have enough to eat, we're not so ill that we can't bring our attention to practice, we don't have mental illness or lack of capacity or something like that, we still have experiences that we forget to practice. So we get too upset that we forget practice, or something makes us so angry that we forget practice, or we're having to deal with something that is so in the moment and so crucial that we forget about practice. But the more we engage in the practice on our cushions and develop an understanding and an experience of the spaciousness of mind, the easier it becomes to regard all life circumstances as something that can be practiced with. That is something that will just develop over time as you practice more and more in terms of meditation. But it's just important from the perspective of this slogan to remember, when you're feeling victimized or poor me or something like that, that there's going to be something there that can be worked with. There's going to be something that can be transformed. It's just a matter of being open to that possibility.
Can I interrupt about it? There's a question from Luke that goes back a step. I think we might as well take it now. Okay. I understand that it's important not to fall into the trap of believing one has to be cruel to be kind. However, at times, even in close friendships, boundaries may need to be asserted. How should one work with the arising experience that one's reasonable requests or statements of personal boundaries have caused pain or hurt another being?
Wow. Well, the problem with being asked what is clearly quite a personal and specific question in a general manner that's quite difficult to answer without knowing some specifics. If the setting of boundaries arose from protecting the me project, then the next slogan is probably the most pertinent, and I'll just say what the next slogan is, which is drive all blames into one. Because the me project is actually the cause of all problems. The belief that there's a me I have to protect. It was quite a long question. It was something about boundaries with friends.
Yes, it was, the nub appears to be that sometimes boundaries may need to be set, and the question is, how does one work with the experience that one's reasonable requests or statements of personal boundaries have caused pain or hurt another being?
Well, I think first of all, you'd have to question whether it was reasonable and make sure that you were sure it was reasonable. Then you'd have to question how you approached it and whether you approached it skillfully or clumsily. But over and above all, you have to try and make it all right for that person. You have to be kind and somehow help them with the distress that they've experienced. Ultimately, we have to help other people, and that is more important than anything. But I really think I couldn't really answer that question properly without knowing the specifics, and it would probably be better to direct that question to your personal teacher rather than to me in this general setting. Is that all right? Where's Luke?
Yes.
I can't see him on the screen.
No, he's in this black box.
Oh,
here.
hello in black box. I hope that...
hello. Yeah, sorry, the camera's not working today.
Right.
Those were perfect answers, and actually, although obviously it has arisen from various specific situations, it is a very general experience that I've had many times. So the general answer was exactly what I was looking for, and thank you very much.
Okay, good. Now this slogan, drive all blames into one. If we could really just get this one slogan, it would transform our lives. I would encourage you to read Chekhawa Yeshé Dorje's commentary on this slogan, because I just found it brilliant. The root cause of everything is believing that we have a self we have to protect, believing in an inherent self. And all our emotional responses, and the me project, as I call it, are because we think there's this something that we have to protect. Now, if we truly embrace that as a root cause of all problems, then that will transform your experience, because you'll be willing to take on the blame for everything. Because ultimately, the belief in a self is to blame for everything. So even if a situation exists where you haven't actually done anything wrong, but somehow people have been hurt, take the blame anyway. Just allow yourself to let go of, well, it wasn't me that did anything, it wasn't my fault. Just let go of all that and just do whatever needs to be done to make it all right for the other person. Just open your heart and open yourself to transforming the experience for them. And through transforming the experience for them, you'll transform it for yourself. So whenever you're feeling like you're a victim, or somebody's picking on you, or any things aren't going the way they should do because I'm not understood. It's all of those confusions are rooted in them viewing you from the perspective of their own experience of an inherent self, and you viewing yourself from the perspective of having an inherent self. And because of the way we wish to engage in terms of Buddhists, then, well, we forgive other people their view of having an inherent self and the perhaps unkindness that arises from that, because that is just the nature of being unenlightened. That's the nature of dwelling in duality, the nature of being not awakened. But because we're engaged in the path of becoming awakened, then we just default to, oh, well, it's my lack of awareness that's the problem. How can I make this better for you? And just let go of any ideas of fault and blame and guilt and all those sort of things. We always take anything that is uncomfortable for somebody else seriously, and anything that's uncomfortable for ourselves, we don't take so seriously. That is a kind of bedrock of practice in terms of awakening, that anything that I'm uncomfortable about is likely to be connected to the me project. Anything you're projecting that you think that somebody else is projecting onto you that you think is wrong is coming from the same blame, but you forgive them because I can only work on myself. I can't change you. I can only work on myself. And so enlightened me, awakened me, just lets go of anything to do with worrying about whether I actually have any blame in the situation, whether what you're saying is right or wrong, etc., etc. Just let go of the me project and everything becomes simple. Yeah, I'm to blame because I've got a me project. It's as simple as that. They've got a me project too, but only they can take their own blame. Everybody has to be responsible for themselves in Buddhism. I think possibly Buddhism is unique in terms of a religion in that way, is that we're all taking responsibility. I take responsibility for believing I have an inherent self. And so I take the blame for everything because I have this fundamental basic ignorance that just screws everything up, really. Yes, it's true, you've got it too, but I can't change you. It's not my responsibility to change you. It's only my responsibility to change me. My responsibility towards you is to be kind. And that's where it ends. So I think this is a wonderful slogan, and one that I try and remember whenever I'm feeling hard done by, or as though I'm a victim, or I'm being treated badly, or whatever. I always try and remember this one. Sometimes I succeed more times than others, but that's the nature of practice.
1 minute.
Right, wow, we've still got another 3 to go in this section. I think probably we won't start another one then.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to remember that we're on slogan 13. For those of you who are sitting there thinking, this is the 3rd session of Battlecry and we've only got to slogan 13, don't worry, because many of the slogans at the end, there's not a lot to say about them. The last 2 sections, the last 2 points of the 7 points in particular, we don't need to look at the individual slogans in such depth, I don't feel. It's more getting the understanding of the point of the point of the 7 points is more important at that stage than the individual slogans. We will look at the individual slogans, but we won't need to look at them in such depth. These first 3 points are the fundamental teachings of mind training. And these are the 3 points that have to be understood in depth, have to be embraced in depth in order to engage in mind training. So we'll stop there.
Right. I think we had one person just arrive.
Oh.
Verena. I think she only just arrived now.
I got the time wrong, I think.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, it is.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
It is recorded, so you'll be able to pick up the video on YouTube. I'll edit it a little bit to take out the front bit. I'll probably take out that discussion about hardware as well.
Yeah.
And then I'll put it up on YouTube. So thank you everybody for coming today, and I hope it's been good, and see you next time.